I think I could nearly do it blindfolded now. No, I just sit about the place and try and be agreeable. It's the most fabulous family pastime, really. 4 people can enjoy motorsport together.
Quite cold when trialling happens.
That doesn't faze the Vintage Sports Car Club member. They like to be out and about. DBR13, there were 3 very famous Aston Martins built for Jim Clark and Sterling Moss. Top speed at Le Mans was 167 miles an hour. People have their ashes spread here. A friend of mine had his ashes spread, sucked into the engine and out of the exhaust.
Welcome to Vintage Velocity, the podcast from the Vintage Sports Car Club. Today we're here at the Vintage Weekend, which is the annual vintage racing weekend of the Hill Climb at Prescott Hill Climb. And I'm here with Roger Collings and I'm Lara Plattman. Roger, welcome to the podcast. You have just returned from your ascent. It was your 263rd time that you've ascended the hill?
That's absolutely correct. And it's in a car that I bought in 1958 for £200, and it's the same car I drove in 1960 when I was the only non-president in the Edwardian class.
And the car is a Zeus, is that right?
It's a Brixia Zeus. It was made on the shores of Lake Garda in 1912. It's a 4.7 litre touring car that's never been off the road and never been restored.
And you're here with your whole family, and it's a whole family weekend away. What other cars do you have here on the hill climb today?
Well, Archie, Ben's younger son, is driving an Austin 7. He's sharing it with William Marsh, which is great because his car broke down on the way. And my son Ben is driving a 15 litre 1907 chain-driven Mercedes, which he's sharing with his sister Sally. And the other entrant we've got is my son Craig driving a Delage with a Gypsy Moth engine. So all in all, we're having a great time.
Now the years of these cars, the Mercedes and the Delage, what years are they?
The Mercedes is 1907. The Delage is 1928, and the Austin 7s is probably 1928, which he's sharing with William Marsh.
So you're sort of straddling a few classes. You're straddling a few classes. You've got the Edwardian class, and what other classes have you got?
Well, Class 1 for Austin 7s, and then Class 4 for cars over 3 litre.
So that's this weekend. That's what you're here with at the Vintage Weekend. But you have had a whole range of cars, which I heard yesterday you'd given them all away to your family. They're all spread around. I'm going to reel a list of cars that you've had, and you've just got a Bugatti behind us. Now, I wonder how that's going to affect us. Okay, we've just had a little gap because some Bugattis were warming up to go up, ascend the hill. I just want to remind myself that you've ascended the hill 263 times in your career as a vintage racing car driver.
That's absolutely correct. First time I came here was 1960, when I was the only non-president in the Edwardian class in the car that I'm driving today.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just thinking, I want to talk about your cars. Now, what was the first car that you had?
Well, the first car I had was a 1928 1250 Alvis. My father was owed £14 by somebody on the Bridgend trading estate, and the chap couldn't pay the debt. So he said to my father, I understand your son's going into the national service, going into the army. Why don't you take this car in payment for my debt? And he did, and he gave me my 1250 Alvis for me to use going back and forth from Cardiff to Anglesey. I was in the Remy, so I managed to rebuild the Alvis in the Remy workshops a couple of times, and it was a great introduction to old cars, and it's because of the Alvis that I joined the Vintage Sports Car Club in 1958.
And did you race the Alvis? I gather you using it as your daily, but did you race the Alvis as well?
I competed with it at hill climbs. I never raced it, but I trialled it a lot, which is driving up muddy hills in Wales.
Is that where all the bouncing happens? Everyone's sitting in the back bouncing around?
That's right, that's where all the bouncing happens.
Now, that was your first car. You joined the Vintage Sports Car Club, and that progressed to you acquiring a whole host of other cars. What was your next car and the car after, and what fondest memories do you have of these cars?
Well, the next car I bought out of a advert in Motorsport for this 1912 Zust, which I've still got, and it's probably the family's favourite car because I got married from it and all my children got married, and one of my sons passed his test in the Zust before he was 17. Try and work that out. And all the grandchildren we brought back from being born in it. It's always been the first car. It's rather like it's the central part of our family.
And this is the car that you've just returned down the hill from in the Zust. It's the same car.
Oh, absolutely the same car. And it's never been restored, and it's never been off the road, and it's never failed.
So we have a photograph of the Zust on the podcast. Now, of course, I forgot to mention, those of you who are only listening, who are not watching the video of this, we are at the Vintage Sports Car Club Vintage Weekend at Prescott, and you may hear some buzzing of engines behind us. You might hear all sorts of noises and cars starting up and getting ready to go. But we are sitting amongst the wonderful, wonderful fumes that a car purrs with, and that's what we had a little break with before. But so tell me, so you've got the Zust, which you've still got, and then what was the other cars that you had as part of the Vintage Sports Car Club journey?
Well, the next car I bought was a 3-litre Bentley, which cost me £23.10, and I used that for my first race at Oulton Park, but that wasn't very satisfactory, so I then got hold of a 3-litre with a 4.5-litre engine, which was much more fun, and used that a great deal, and that car now belongs to one of my daughters.
And I heard, so you said yesterday that you'd given all your cars away. Does all of your family have a particularly different car now?
Yeah, they were all given the cars when they were 18, so at least it's not my problem now. And when I need a car to compete, I just ring one of them up and use their car, which saves me having to garage them.
And also, we'll continue talking about the cars, but all your children, all your family, do they work on the cars themselves, or do you have a mechanic that comes in? Or of course you don't, but does everyone know how to work on those cars?
Oh yeah, especially the boys. Ben and Craig are ace engineers. The girls are pretty clued up on how to fix things, but they don't do the complete rebuilding of cars. And
are the girls equal to the boys in the racing, on the hill climbs and the trials and the racing up the hill? Are the girls as fast as the boys when they ascend the hill?
Sadly not. But today, one of my daughters, Sally, was supposed to drive an Austin 7, which expired on the way here. So she's driving a 15-litre chain-driven Mercedes today, after having never driven the car, which I think is pretty gutsy.
So, Mike, that is really gutsy. It's a big car. Now, we have another car starting up, and I'm going to ask you if you can hear me. If you can hear me, we'll carry on.
Yeah, fine.
Well, I think we'll just carry on. And everybody who's listening only without the video, we'll try and take away some of the noise of the cars, but I think you might actually enjoy it because they sound so amazing. Now, tell me, you've got some other cars. A 1904 Humber.
Oh yes, that was, I found that in a shed up the Rhondda Valleys in about the August of 1960, but and I got the car running and did the first Brighton run in it 2 months later.
And how did the Brighton run go? Was that all very hunky-dory?
Well, it is. some years we had 5 cars on the Brighton Run, and it was all very well and good in the beginning, but now it's ghastly expensive, and I started to do it in a 1903 Mercedes, which was all well and good, but I was coming back to London, and there were still cars at Croydon going down to Brighton, and I used to drive that car, my first 1903 Mercedes, from Cardiff to London to Brighton, back to London, then back to Cardiff, because it never went on a trailer.
Amazing. Good story with the car. Now, you've been a member of the Vintage Sports Car Club, and of course you've been a past president of the club. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that as well?
Well, they were great years. 3 years I did as president, and it was nice to lead the Vintage Sports Car Club with a veteran car, a 1903 Mercedes, so that we had a lot of fun. It was nice because my wife Judy always came with me on the trials in the car, and she was really part of my presidency.
And so that's been really part of your whole life, this club, because your whole family participates, all your friends are here, and the passion is with vintage cars and veteran cars.
Yeah, the important thing is the Vintage Sports Car Club it's about cars and it's about people, but the most important thing is it's to compete. The main aim of the Vintage Sports Car Club is to carry out the pastime of motorsport in cars built before 1931, and lately we've allowed post-vintage cars in, but that's the most important thing, is competition. We don't just drive the cars about or mend them or polish them, we actually enjoy competing.
So today, at the Vintage Weekend, it's a really full grid. I mean, I haven't looked to how many, there's over 300 cars. I think easily over 300 cars, I'm just not quite sure. Is there any cars here that you've seen that you just hadn't seen in a while?
No, not really. You know, if you come to some of our over 60 years, you seem to get to know everybody and all their cars, and it's the most fabulous family pastime, really, because you can, especially trialing, because 4 people can enjoy motorsport together.
And and because it's quite cold when trialing happens, everyone's huddled together, and the weather is against you, and everyone's just really supporting each other.
Yeah, well, that doesn't faze the Vintage Sports Car Club member. They like to be out and about in muddy hills in Wales or Derbyshire or the Lake District, and it's just thoroughly good fun.
So I've got a few more cars on my list. You did mention the Dirac, the 1904 Dirac. Can you tell me a little bit about that car?
Well, that was bought for my wife to drive on the Brighton Run, which she did on manifold occasions. So it's a nice little single-seater veteran, beautiful little thing, but not for motorsport, really.
And then we also have, I've got here listed, Aston Martin DB13.
A DBR13, there were 3 very famous Aston Martins built for Jim Clark and Sterling Moss to race. I had that for a while, and I used it at Prescott and Silverstone once or twice, but it was much too fast for me. Its top speed at Le Mans was 167 miles an hour, and I was just worried that the boys were going to get hankering to drive it.
Ah, yes, I see. And I think from what you're saying is your whole passion is that everybody needs to be driving all the cars in your family. It needs to be a whole community family event all the whole time.
Yeah, well, I've got 4 or 5 grandchildren now that are driving on trials and hill climbs, which is good, and hopefully the great-grandchildren will grow into it. They're pretty keen.
May I ask how old the great-grandchildren are?
The great-grandchildren are from 6 down to nearly born.
Gosh, so they're already keen to sit behind the wheel. This is exciting news for the future of for your family and the Vintage Car Club as well.
Yeah, and as I said before, it's a wonderful family hobby. We all do it together, which is great.
So, How did you get into cars to start with, though? How did you get into? I know how you got your Alvis, but what made you? Was it just because it was a matter of fact that it was there? But what made you have this passion for the vintage cars?
Well, when I was 16, I built a car with a Morris chassis, MG body, and a Ford engine that I used to use illegally all the time. And one night on the way back from a jazz club in Cardiff, I rolled the car over and was crated off to hospital. And my parents weren't even aware I had a car or I was even out at night. So when the police rang and said, your son's in hospital, they said, oh, he can't be, he's just come home. That was my elder brother. Of course he knew, and he got a real bollocking from my father for me having this unlawful car. I'd climbed down to my bedroom window to drive to Cardiff, you see. So those are the things you got up to then.
What did you call the car? Did you call it a Morris, or what was the main aspect of the car? Which make of the car was the majority of it?
Well, I just called it Morris.
And so that's what made you think, right, I'm just going to carry on with this passion that I have.
Well, yeah, and you know, it's been such great fun, and it's been, my sons found their wives through old cars, really. My eldest son used to take a girl out to Cologne for the high-speed run there, and Ben met his wife at Goodwood. So that's all been very satisfactory.
It's a really nice thing to have. We have also, what do we have? We have the Bentley 3 litre. When did you have that?
Cars I've had, well, a 3 litre was an early saloon, then a 3 4.5, then a Speed 6, then another 4.5, then, of course, all during some of this time I was running the Gilburn Car Company, the Welsh car that was made in South Wales.
And so the Gilburn Car Company is the only, at that time, was the only car manufacturer in Wales at all.
Absolutely, oh yes. Yes, it was testing times, but we when they removed the purchase tax advantage, it made the cars much too expensive, so it folded up.
And so you've had plenty of Bentleys. What made you? What was it about them that just allowed you to just continue changing the make and changing the Bentleys?
Well, they're very sturdy, reliable, beautiful cars, well engineered, and I just always liked a good red label Bentley. There's plenty here today, and their longevity and you know, a good 3 4.5 will do well over 100 miles an hour. So it's never going to hold the modern traffic up.
So talking about today at the weekend, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you want to get back to seeing all your friends, both people and cars. I think all the cars are your friends as well. Are you helping your family tinker and fettle with the cars to make sure that their runs are getting faster and faster?
Good Lord, no, I do nothing. In fact, because the Zus doesn't have a starter motor, when I'm here, one of my sons always turns it over for me. So no, I just sit about the place and try and be agreeable.
I heard from somebody in the paddock that although everybody has their start time in their class and they go up in number order, you just go up when you fancy. Is that right, or is that a complete myth?
Just what?
You just ascend the hill when you fancy, or is that a complete myth?
Oh no, I go in time, and I think I can nearly do it blindfolded now. It's a very special place, Prescott, and people have their ashes spread here. One friend of mine had his ashes spread, sucked into the engine and out of the exhaust.
Oh my goodness! That's a thought and a half. Prescott is a very special place, and they have driving courses here for youngsters. Can't hear now. Okay. We're going to have a little gap because there's another engine started up. And I think we actually might... Oh, we can carry on. I think that's okay. We'll just carry on, everybody. But we are going to wrap up because I know you want to get back to your family. And I want to talk about the VSCC in the future. You've got great-grandchildren just about being born and under their teens still wanting to get into your cars. The future of the VSCC is brilliant. I've seen so many young people here today. What do you think about everybody of all ages being here?
Well, we're very lucky in the VSCC. Some of our young drivers and our wonderful engineers, they create beautiful vintage cars from a pile of bits. But as I said before, the most important thing is to compete. That's what keeps the club young. It's the joy of competing together.
It's a fabulous thing. So I'd like to thank you, Roger, for taking the time out of your busy family weekend away here. Join us next time and we'll talk to another really interesting person at the Vintage Sports Car Club. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. And I'll leave it there. Thank you so much.